The conversation you have with yourself in the mirror each morning determines whether you'll walk through life as a victim of circumstances or as the architect of your destiny. Right now, as you're listening to these words, millions of thoughts are racing through your mind. Some empowering, some defeating, some hopeful, some fearful. But here's what most people don't realize. That internal dialogue, those whispered conversations you have with yourself when no one else is listening, those are the blueprints of your reality. They're not just thoughts, they're the construction plans for your future. Every single day, you wake up with a choice. You can either be your own worst enemy or your greatest champion. You can choose to speak life into your dreams or death into your potential. The ancient Stoics understood this profound truth, that we become what we repeatedly tell ourselves. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." Today, I'm going to share with you 5 transformative keys that will revolutionize not just how you think, but how you live, love, and lead. These aren't just motivational platitudes. They're time-tested principles that have guided the greatest minds in history and can guide you toward the extraordinary life you deserve. Stay with me, because by the end of this message, you'll have a roadmap to becoming unstoppable. The first truth you must tell yourself every morning is this: no matter what happens today, you are in complete control of your response. This isn't about controlling circumstances. That's impossible and will drive you to madness. This is about understanding the profound power that lies in the gap between stimulus and response. Viktor Frankl, who survived the concentration camps, discovered this ultimate freedom even in humanity's darkest hour. He realized that while everything could be taken from him, no one could control his response to what was happening. Think about this for a moment. Every relationship challenge you face, every financial setback, every disappointment, every betrayal, none of these events have the power to determine your destiny. They are simply raw material that you can either use to build character or allow to build resentment. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who lived as a slave yet became one of history's most influential thinkers, taught that we suffer not from events themselves, but from our judgments about those events. When you wake up and declare, "I am in complete control of my response," you're claiming your birthright as a human being. You're saying that regardless of what your spouse does, what your boss says, what the economy looks like, or what challenges arise, you will choose your response from a place of power, not reaction. This shift in perspective transforms you from a victim of circumstances into a creator of outcomes. Consider the marriages that thrive versus those that merely survive. The difference isn't in the absence of conflict, it's in how each partner chooses to respond to conflict. The couple that builds their relationship on the foundation of responsibility creates a love that deepens through adversity rather than crumbles under pressure. They understand that love isn't just a feeling. It's a daily choice to respond with grace, understanding, and commitment regardless of how they might feel in the moment. This principle extends to every area of your life. In your career, you'll face rejection, criticism, and setbacks. Those who rise to the top aren't those who never fall. They're those who choose how they respond to falling. They use failure as feedback, criticism as coaching, and setbacks as setups for comebacks. They understand that their responsibility is their superpower, and they wield it with intention and wisdom. The second declaration that will transform your life is understanding that your past is not your prison. It's your professor. Every mistake you've made, every relationship that ended badly, every financial failure, every moment of weakness or poor judgment, these are not life sentences. They are tuition payments in the University of Experience, and the only tragedy would be failing to extract the lessons they offer. The Stoics had a beautiful concept called the discipline of desire, the ability to want what happens rather than demanding that what we want must happen. This doesn't mean becoming passive or accepting mediocrity. It means understanding that everything in your past, including the painful chapters, happened for you, not to you. It means recognizing that your current circumstances are not your final destination, but simply your starting point for the next phase of your journey. Look at the most successful people in any field, and you'll find they all share one common trait. They've transformed their wounds into wisdom, their tests into testimonies, their messes into messages. They understand that the very experiences that once seemed to disqualify them are actually what uniquely qualify them to help others and achieve extraordinary things. The recovering addict becomes the most powerful addiction counselor. The person who overcame bankruptcy becomes the most credible financial advisor. The one who rebuilt their marriage after infidelity becomes the most effective relationship coach. Your past failures are not evidence of your future limitations, they're proof of your resilience. Every time you've fallen and gotten back up, you've built psychological muscle. Every time you've made a mistake and learned from it, you've gained wisdom that can't be taught in any classroom. Every time you've been knocked down and refused to stay down, you've developed the kind of character that can't be broken by temporary setbacks. In relationships, this principle is revolutionary. So many people sabotage their present connections because they're haunted by past hurts. They allow previous betrayals to build walls that keep out future blessings. They let old wounds dictate new choices. But when you truly understand that your past doesn't define your future, you can love with an open heart again. You can trust with wisdom rather than fear. You can give without the guarantee of receiving because you know that your capacity to love is not dependent on how you've been loved. This doesn't mean being naive or ignoring red flags. It means approaching new relationships with the wisdom gained from past experiences while refusing to let those experiences limit your capacity for joy, intimacy, and connection. It means understanding that the person who hurt you before is not the person standing in front of you now, and they deserve to be judged by their own actions, not someone else's mistakes. The third transformation comes when you commit to choosing growth over comfort in every significant decision you make. Comfort is seductive because it feels safe, but it's actually the most dangerous place you can live because nothing grows in the comfort zone. Everything you want, deeper relationships, financial abundance, personal fulfillment, spiritual growth, lives on the other side of discomfort. The ancient Stoics understood this deeply. They practiced voluntary discomfort not because they enjoyed suffering, but because they knew that resilience is built through challenge, not through ease. Seneca would sleep on hard floors and eat simple meals to remind himself that he could thrive under any circumstances. This practice wasn't about self-punishment, it was about self-empowerment. It was about proving to himself that his happiness wasn't dependent on external circumstances. When you choose growth over comfort, you're making a statement about who you're becoming. You're saying that your potential is more important than your present ease. You're declaring that the person you can become is worth more than the temporary discomfort of change. This choice ripples through every aspect of your life in powerful ways. In your relationships, choosing growth over comfort means having the difficult conversations instead of avoiding them. It means being vulnerable instead of protected. It means apologizing when you're wrong instead of defending your ego. It means speaking your truth even when your voice shakes. The strongest relationships aren't built on the absence of conflict, they're forged in the fire of working through conflict together. When both partners commit to growth over comfort, they create a dynamic where challenges become opportunities to deepen their connection rather than threats to their peace. In your career and finances, this principle transforms everything. Instead of staying in the job that pays the bills but kills your spirit, you invest in developing skills that can create the life you actually want. Instead of spending money on things that provide temporary pleasure, you invest in experiences and education that provide lasting value. Instead of playing it safe, you take calculated risks that can lead to exponential rewards. The magic happens when you realize that the discomfort of growth is temporary, but the regret of staying the same lasts forever. Every time you choose the harder path because it leads to who you want to become, you build confidence in your ability to handle whatever life throws at you. You develop what psychologists call self-efficacy, the belief that you can figure things out and overcome challenges. This doesn't mean being reckless or making changes for the sake of change. It means being honest about where comfort has become complacency and having the courage to push beyond those boundaries. It means recognizing that the things you want most require you to become someone you've never been before, and that becoming requires you to do things you've never done before. The fourth life-changing truth you must embrace is that your worthiness is not something you earn. It's something you already possess. You don't become worthy of love by being perfect. You don't become worthy of success by never failing. You don't become worthy of abundance by never having been poor. Your worthiness is inherent, built into the very fabric of your being, and recognizing this truth will revolutionize how you show up in the world. This is perhaps the most challenging principle for many people to accept because we live in a performance-based culture that teaches us our value is tied to our achievements. We're conditioned to believe that love must be earned, success must be justified, and abundance must be deserved. But this conditioning creates a prison of perpetual inadequacy where we're always trying to prove ourselves rather than simply being ourselves. The Stoic philosophers understood that external validation is a trap that leads to internal emptiness. Marcus Aurelius, despite being the most powerful man in the world as Roman emperor, constantly reminded himself that his worth wasn't tied to his position, his wealth, or others' opinions of him. He knew that true worthiness comes from character, integrity, and the commitment to live according to virtue regardless of external circumstances. When you truly believe in your inherent worthiness, it transforms how you approach relationships. You stop trying to earn love through people-pleasing, overgiving, or changing yourself to fit others' expectations. Instead, you love from a place of fullness rather than need. You attract people who appreciate your authentic self rather than settling for those who only value what you can do for them. You set healthy boundaries because you know you deserve to be treated with respect and kindness. This shift in self-perception also revolutionizes your relationship with money and success. When you believe you're worthy of abundance, you stop apologizing for wanting more. You stop playing small to make others comfortable. You start taking up the space you deserve in the world. You pursue opportunities with confidence rather than approaching them from a place of desperation or inadequacy. Understanding your worthiness doesn't make you arrogant or entitled. It makes you grateful and generous. When you know you have value, you naturally want to add value to others' lives. When you feel abundant, you can afford to be generous. When you know you're loved, you can love more freely. Worthiness breeds worthiness. It's contagious and attractive. The beautiful paradox is that when you stop trying to prove your worth, you naturally become more valuable to others. When you stop chasing love, you become more lovable. When you stop desperately pursuing success, you become more successful. This happens because you're operating from authenticity rather than anxiety, from confidence rather than desperation, from abundance rather than scarcity. The fifth and perhaps most powerful principle is learning to see every challenge as an invitation to become stronger. This isn't about toxic positivity or pretending that difficult times don't hurt. This is about developing the mature perspective that allows you to find meaning in suffering and strength in struggle. It's about understanding that the very things that threaten to break you are often the things that make you unbreakable. The Stoics had a profound saying, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This isn't philosophical wordplay, it's a fundamental truth about how growth works. Your muscles don't grow from lifting light weights that feel comfortable. They grow from the resistance that feels challenging. Your character doesn't develop from easy times. It develops from your response to difficult times. Consider how this principle applies to relationships. The couples who have the strongest marriages aren't those who never face problems. They're those who learn to solve problems together. Every conflict becomes an opportunity to understand each other more deeply. Every disagreement becomes a chance to practice communication skills. Every challenge becomes a test that, when passed together, creates unshakable confidence in their ability to handle whatever life brings. The person who has never faced financial hardship may have money, but they lack the resilience that comes from knowing they can rebuild if they lose everything. The person who has never experienced heartbreak may be in a relationship, but they lack the depth that comes from understanding both love's power and love's fragility. The person who has never failed may appear successful, but they lack the wisdom that comes from learning to rise after falling. When you start viewing challenges as opportunities for growth, you develop what psychologists call post-traumatic growth, the ability to not just recover from difficult experiences, but to become stronger because of them. You begin to trust yourself more deeply because you have evidence that you can handle hard things. You develop emotional resilience. That becomes your greatest asset in navigating life's inevitable ups and downs. This perspective also transforms how you approach problems in your career and personal goals. Instead of seeing obstacles as reasons to quit, you see them as puzzles to solve. Instead of viewing setbacks as evidence that you're not cut out for success, you see them as necessary parts of the journey that are teaching you what you need to know to sustain success when it comes. The most successful people in any field share this common trait. They've learned to extract value from every experience, especially the painful ones. They understand that their greatest testimonies come from their greatest tests. They know that their most powerful messages are born from their messiest moments. They've discovered that what makes them different isn't the absence of problems, but their response to problems. These 5 principles aren't just ideas to consider, they're commitments to make. They're daily declarations that will reshape your reality from the inside out. When you wake up each morning and remind yourself that you control your responses, that your past doesn't define your future, that growth matters more than comfort, that you're inherently worthy, and that every challenge is an opportunity, you're not just thinking differently, you're living differently. The transformation won't happen overnight, but it will happen if you stay consistent. Every day you choose these thoughts over the limiting beliefs that once held you back, you're rewiring your brain for success. Every time you respond with wisdom instead of reacting with emotion, you're building character. Every time you choose growth over comfort, you're expanding your capacity for greatness. Remember, the quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions you ask yourself and the answers you're willing to accept. Stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "How can this make me better?" Stop asking, "What if I fail?" and start asking, "What if I succeed beyond my wildest dreams?" Stop asking, "Am I good enough?" and start declaring, "I am exactly who I need to be to create the life I desire." Your words have power. Your thoughts have influence. Your beliefs have consequences. Choose them wisely, speak them boldly, and watch as your external world begins to reflect the internal transformation that's taking place within you.